Hi, Luciana. Welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have a conversation with you today.
Hi, Carrie, and thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it is my pleasure. And now, before we get into the meat of our interview, can you tell the listeners a little bit more about you, about your history in sports physical therapy? And as I mentioned, you are the current president of IFSPT, so you can talk a little bit about that as well. So I will hand the mic over to you.
Okay, Karen. So I'm from Brazil. I'm a sports physical therapist, and I graduated in 2003. So I'm almost 20 years as a physical therapist. And I'm also a professor in a university here in Brazil. I'm based in Belo Horizonte. And I started to work as a student in sports team. I wanted to do physical therapy because of sports. I am passionate about it, and I started in this political scenario in the Brazilian Society of Sports Physical Therapy, and I started. It was in 2016. It was the year of Rio 2016 Olympic and Paralympic Games. So it was a really big challenge. I also worked in the physical therapy services during the Olympics and Paralympic game here. And I started being part of the executive board of the IFSPT in 2017. So I learned a lot during the presidency of Anthony Schneiders and then Christian Torborg. And now I have this big challenge to be IFSPT president. So I'm balancing these actions related to IFSPT and also with teaching and also research about sports physical therapy. And my research is mainly directed to injury prevention and also injury risk profile. So I think that's it, Carrie.
Perfect. And can you talk a little bit more about IFSPT and kind of the importance of having these organizations and what they do? What are they there for?
Yes, so the International Federation of Sports Physical Therapy, it's a subgroup of the World Physiotherapy. That's our mother organization. So as a subgroup, we have to engage countries around the world that have a specific group related to sports physical therapy to join the IFSPT. So nowadays we have 34 member organizations in the IFSPT. And our main mission is related to disseminate good practices, support research on sports physical therapy, of course, and also promote actions to support our members and the whole community to improve the practices around the world. And also it's a good, it's an important way to connect with people. So I think the most amazing gift that I have being in IFSPT board is to network with people around the world. So it's a really important way to have our profession organized. And so I will be in the presidency for the next 4 years. That's the plan.
Yeah, that's amazing. And one of the things that, like you said, as part of the organization is networking. And we'll probably repeat this a couple of times, but the 4th World Congress of Sports Physical Therapy is coming up August 26th, 27th of 2022 in Denmark. And obviously you will be there and you are part of several presentations. But like you said, your research is around injury prevention and assessment in sports. So can you talk about why the sports physical therapist is an important component of these injury prevention programs or injury reduction programs?
Yes, I just want to stress that, yes, the World Congress of Sports Physical Therapy, it's important action that IFSPT also have. We are one of the main organizations, the main subgroups of World Physiotherapy that deliver an international congress. So we had the first one in Bern, the second one Belfast, the third in Vancouver, and now in Nyborg in Denmark. So I went to Belfast, to Vancouver, and now I will be in Nyborg for sure. So I'm sorry, Karen, I forgot your question.
Oh yeah, no. So my question, like I said,
I remember now.
You're doing a ton. You'll be doing a ton in Nyberg. But one of the things that I know you are talking about is about your research that centers around injury prevention, and something that you're passionate about is that the sports physical therapist should really be involved. So why is that?
Yes. So I always thought that the main action as a sports physical therapy in a sports team, of course, I should be aware that for me, I need to put all athletes available to the coach, to the head coach, to train. So for me, it was always a good sign to have like the physical therapy department empty without athletes there, because all athletes should be on the field playing and training. So for me, prevention was always an important action that we as physical therapists should be aware of. So when I finished my PhD and started to be a teacher in a university here in Brazil, I started to wonder, especially after I started to work in the IFSPT board, I started to wonder if the prevention, the role that the sports physical therapy had in prevention, and I know that how this works in Brazil, because I was a sports physical therapist in a volleyball team and soccer team. I was wondering if it was like the same, or I was wondering if it should be the same, or if we are here in Brazil were doing like similar things that other professionals did around the world. So I had a sabbatical year in 2020, and I went to Belgium to work with Eric Vitbro. I was there in Ghent, the University of Ghent, as a visiting professor, and we started to develop a survey to understand what role the sports physical therapist had in injury prevention. So I will talk about some of our results. We had 2 papers about the survey that are published in Physical Therapy in Sports, and this helped me to have a sort of idea about the role. And we have really interesting information about this that, of course, I will share here in this podcast and also in the World Congress of Sports Physical Therapy. And also, we developed a Delphi design to establish a consensus on sports injury prevention programs. So this is also an interesting study that we could deliver. And IFSPT participated in this Delphi study, linking people from different countries. So I'm really excited to talk to you about this, Karen, and say something that should make people a little bit curious and participate in the Congress in Denmark.
Yes. So can you give us a little bit of info? You don't have to give it all away. Of course, people can go and read the published papers, but in this study, you had how many people? What did you find? How did you do it?
So yes, for sure, I can share some of the data that we had. The papers are published, and also you can indicate for your audience. Mm-hmm. I can send you the links.
Perfect.
And it's important. I totally understand, Karen, that sports injury prevention area, we need to move forward related to research. We need to understand a lot of things, but I think it's interesting to understand what the professionals, what the sports physical therapists are doing, because this can bring up some questions for future research. So on this survey, we we had 414 sports physical therapists participating around the world. So I think we had like people from 32 countries. So I know that the amount is not so high. We could have more people participating, but it was delivered in 2020 during the pandemic. So this
Right.
is one thing that I should stress, because yes, we had 32 countries participating, but for sure, I expected to have more people there. But we had questions in this online survey that was linked to the sequence of prevention that Van Mechelen delivered, and maybe it's the most used model or to make decisions about prevention. So we asked if these sports physical therapists participated on injury registration. It's common here in Brazil, but I didn't know if my colleagues in other countries participating in the injury registration. We also asked if they assessed the athletes to build the prevention program. So if they did, for example, Preseason assessment, that's the more common way, at least in Brazil. So I was curious about that. And also we asked about the prevention program. So if the physios participated in this action or not. So about injury registration, the first thing, I think this is an amazing result, because we had more than 80% of the sports physical therapists that participate in this study responsible for injury registration. So we can now say that maybe the sports physio are the person like more important, more responsible to properly register injury in their sports team. So this brings up a lot of other questions. So for example, maybe IFSPT should deliver some actions to maybe increase the knowledge and maybe the competence on this matter on our community, because of course, if we are responsible for this, we want to do an amazing job. So it's interesting, and it's good also to exchange some experience and learn from good examples. So this is really good. And we also ask about the main barriers to, for sure, now register the injuries. So more than a half of these physios said that lack of time in their routine was the main factor to not properly register injuries. So maybe we need to discuss also about the sports physios routine inside the sports team. I think we should talk more about this, especially in conferences, that we can get together a lot of professionals from different countries and we can learn from their experience. So can I move forward, or you have any comment about injury registration?
Nope. I think that's good. And I do like that you said, hey, maybe this is a chance for us to get together, learn from each other, because perhaps there are ways to streamline this that people just haven't thought of that other people are doing. So you're right. It's a great opportunity for sports organizations like IFSPT to bring sports physical therapists together and say, well, wait a second, some of you are doing this, but some of you aren't. And if it's a lack of time, what can we do to give you a structure that can streamline your process?
Yes, exactly. Right? And it's one thing that it needs to be done. We can't like, okay, I'm not going to register injuries, because how can I be sure if I'm going to prevent the injuries if I'm not registering?
So if you're not registering, is it like they didn't happen?
Yes. And another thing that is really interesting, what is the injury definition that the sports physical therapists are using? In my understanding, we can select different definitions, because this maybe rely on the sports modality. But we need to talk more about this. I think we should exchange and learn. And maybe from this, maybe IFSPT can deliver some guidelines. I don't know, because it's one of our missions also to make the IFSPT is the main resource for the sports physical therapy community. So I think we maybe in the future we are going to have more actions based on the findings of this study. So I'm really excited about this.
Okay, so let's move on to preseason assessment. So how many are performing and what are the barriers?
I know that this is this topic is a little bit controversial. I know that we have a group that thinks that we should assess, and another group of sports physio or research thinks that we don't need to. But our survey shows that 77% of the participants perform preseason assessments in their athletes. So 322 sports physical therapists said that they do. This is amazing information, and I didn't expect for this high percentage. And I was happy because I believe that we should assess our athletes to make the most tailored, most amazing tailored prevention program for our athletes. I know that this is a challenge. I totally understand this, but if I think about myself as a sports physical therapy, if I'm working in a sports team, I will do my best to assess the athletes and try to deliver individualized prevention programs. So, but we have a opposite side here, because only 30% of these sports physical therapists that do preseason assessment customize the prevention program based in the results of the assessment. So this is a point that we need to understand better. We need to understand what is happening. Why the sports physio give energy to assess the athletes, but they don't apply the results to build the prevention program. So we didn't ask specific questions about this to understand this. We only asked about the barrier. So the main barrier that was indicated to not perform assessment, it was lack of structure and organization of the sports team. So about half of the participants indicated this barrier. I understand, makes sense, but I'm not sure if this barrier explains 100% of the reasons to not perform the preseason assessment. And I think maybe this is also relied on the evidence that we have related to this. We have big discussions about injury prediction, probability. So maybe we need to make some advance in research about this topic, and maybe we need to talk more about this to make more have this issue more clear to everyone, especially the clinician, because I think, so now it's my opinion, okay, I think we need to assess our athletes. And maybe even the process of assessment should be discussed, because if we are here in a round table with sports physical therapists and we ask how you assess your athletes, which tests do you select? Probably, Karen, we are going to have different answers. So I'm not sure what this means. It means that we don't have standards. We don't have a protocol. Should we have a protocol? I don't know. But what I know is that we need to talk more about this.
Yeah, so oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just I just want to say that I was really happy with the results that the sports physical, the majority is performing a precision assessment, but on contrary, I get a little sad to see that not like 1/3 of them are really applying the results to build prevention programs.
And yeah, and so it brings up a couple of questions for me, and that is, have you seen preseason assessments decrease injury? Are they, and again, this goes on, I think what you just said, that sort of prediction and probability. So if you do a preseason assessment, does that predict less injuries? I don't know. Have you seen, what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you for asking this, Karen. I think preseason assessment, the main purpose is not to predict injury. The main purpose is to identify those athletes with more susceptibility or probability to get injury, and then we can act before this happens. I'm not saying that if we perform a preseason assessment and base the prevention program on the results, our athletes not going to get injured. I'm not saying that. Injury are always going to happen in sports. But we can, for example, decrease the severity. So if I have one athlete that I can, for example, I apply the STARS cushion balance test, and I see that this athlete have a really low stability, functional stability in the lower limb. So I can include in their prevention program exercise to improve the stability, and maybe he will like have the ankle sprain, but I can decrease the severity. So I will decrease the time loss. I will make this athlete more available to the head coach. At the end, that's my reasoning on preseason assessment. And I think there is a misconception about this issue also.
Right. Because I think, if we're playing devil's advocate, some people may say, well, if the preseason assessment isn't going to eliminate injuries, why am I doing it? Right. But like you said, injuries happen, but if you can decrease the severity, if you can decrease the time that the athlete is spent out of the game, then that's a win for the team, and it's a win for the coach and the organization. But if only 30%, if you have all of these sport physiotherapists doing a preseason assessment, but then only 30% customize the program, now we have to come up with some incentives for that physiotherapist to customize the program for the athlete. And again, that may be, like you said, resources available to them. If it's one person and 50 players, it's difficult. That's quite difficult. But I can understand how this can be a very frustrating part of research, because there's a lot of moving parts, and it's not just the sport physiotherapist who has all best intentions at the heart of their work, but there's a lot of external factors that need to come into play. But I also like that idea of being on a round table with sport physiotherapists and saying, well, what do you do? What do you do? And maybe, like you said, I don't know if a protocol is right, but maybe some sort of a roadmap where you have some basic assessments, and then you have the freedom and the ability to get creative, but to have certain things in there that make sense for that sport.
Yes, I totally agree with you. Here in Brazil, I have a lot of colleagues and friends that came from the Brazilian Society of Sports Physical Therapy. So we talked a lot and exchanged a lot. So I myself, I had my challenges related to really delivering the prevention program that I understand that would be like the best thing to do. But of course, this also relies on the relationship with the head coach, the strengthening coach. So it's a lot of factors, variables that we need to understand. And that's really individual. It depends on the context of each sports team. So that's what when I said that maybe we will not have like a protocol, because it depends on the sports team reality. But I agree with you that we can give maybe some roadmap to help everyone to organize better, considering the context.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, that really opens up a can of worms for people. That being said, let's move on to prevention programs. So what did you find with that?
Yes, so about the prevention programs, we see that warm-up and sessions with the physical therapist were the methods more used to prevent injury. And I think about warm-up, this was already expected because it was one roadmap that FIFA 11 Plus gave to everyone, not only for soccer. We have evidence on basketball, handball players. So FIFA 11 Plus really helped in this, maybe this basic organization and how to deliver some preventive action in a more easy and accessible way. So I think it's really interesting that this survey like confirm that warm up, it's a really good strategy to include the prevention program on athletes routine, because the athlete will need to warm up. So we have this moment, and why not to instead of make the athlete do like whatever exercise or just running on the field, why not to be more specific and include exercise that the athletes really need to do based on the sport modality epidemiology. So for example, we know that in soccer, we have a lot of hamstring strain, we have a lot of ankle sprain, knee sprain. So why not to include some Nordic exercises, some balance exercise? I think this is a really important action that all sports physical therapists needs to be engaged and participate. And about the individual sessions with the sports physical therapists, it's important also. And then I really expected some information around this, because we know that we have sometimes one athlete that need a specific exercise that needs to be delivered by the physical therapist. So I was happy to see this, because this was the methods more used, more indicated by our participants. And about the barrier, we saw that lack of time in athletes' routine was the main barrier to perform the prevention. This was indicated by 66% of the participants. Of course, I expected this also. And that's why warm-up it's important action, because this is already in athletes' routine. We don't need to change the routine to include one more time and period to do the exercise related to prevention. So again, Karen, I don't know if this barrier, only about athletes' routine, we can understand why we can't perform injury prevention. And as I said before, I understand the challenges. I think it's not easy, but I think it's a wonderful action that sports physical therapists participate. And it's really, of course, important for our athletes' health, not only performance, because we have evidence that prevention programs also increase performance. But also, I'm concerned about athletes' health. We need to, of course, help the athlete, because no one wants to get injury. So this is really, it was a really important information that the survey also indicated. And this information helped us to sort of build the questions related to the consensus. That was our second step during my experience in Ghent University with Eric.
Right. And so at WCSPT, you're going to show some data about the Delphi consensus. So you don't have to give all that away. People can go to the conference to hear more about that. But if you want to give a little preview, now's your time. So what are the main topics investigated?
So about our Delphi, we organized the consensus in three parts. So the first part was related to how the physios should plan the prevention programs. So this planning was about the information or the reasoning to develop the injury prevention program. So this is interesting because we have information that's, for example, sports physio use the reasoning related to biomechanics, or they base the decision only on evidence and injury epidemiology, or athlete injury history. So we have this kind of information and result, and this is really brings up some discussions. So I hope that on the conference we can have this moment to discuss about our information, our data. The second part was about the organization. So how work environment before the implementation, how this affects the delivering the injury prevention programs. And the third one's about the implementation phase, that I know that there is a lot of discussion in research. We have specific groups of research that really go deep in this matter of implementation. So in this third phase, we identified barriers and facilitators to implement the injury prevention programs, and also related to compliance and feasibility. So this is how we organized the Delphi. It was a huge amount of work from all the co-authors that participated in this study. I'm really happy that we can now say that this is accepted in physical therapy in sports journal, and we can now really disseminate this information. And I'm really happy to be part of this.
Yeah, well, congratulations, because that is a ton of work. And again, if people want to learn more about this, then you can come to NYBERG, August 26th, 27th, the Fourth World Congress of Sports Physical Therapy in Denmark. And I mean, who doesn't want to be in Denmark in the summer, right? I mean, amazing.
Yeah, will be my first time in Denmark. So I am excited to, of course, know Denmark, but also to meet my friends from sports physical therapy community, specifically after this pandemic.
Yeah.
So I really miss my friends, and I'm really excited to talk more about injury prevention and show our consensus results and exchange and networking with everyone there.
Yeah. And where can people find you if they have questions, if they, we'll have the links to the studies that you mentioned in the show notes. So if people read that and they have questions, where can they find you?
Yes, Carrie. So I am on social media. So I have my Facebook profile, Instagram. It's with my name, no change at all. And also in Twitter, it's Lulu De Michelis. So you can find me there, and we can keep talking about injury prevention, IFSPT. I invite everyone for being in the World Congress of Sports Physical Therapy. It's in August, so I'm really excited to be there, and I hope to see you there also, Karen.
Yeah, I will be there. I'm looking forward to it. And now, final question that I ask everyone, knowing where you are now in your life and in your career, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Good question, Karen. So maybe first, I would say to my young self, congratulations. You are an amazing woman, and you accomplished a lot. For sure, I never thought that I would be where I am now as IFSPT president, working in probably the most important federal university here in Brazil. So I'm really happy. If I could give her some advice, should be more lighter, less stressed, less pressure on yourself, Luciana. But at the end, we don't know, Karen, if this increased pressure or stress help in a way for me to be here where I am, or if I could go through this path, be more, I don't know, light. I think the word is light. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. And I love the fact that you said, you would congratulate yourself. And I think celebrating wins and celebrating what we do are things that women don't often do.
Yes,
right? We're
and we need
always
to.
sort of congratulating others and putting others up, but we never sort of congratulate ourselves and celebrate our wins. And I think if I were to go back and tell my younger self something, that would be it. Like, stop making yourself
Yes.
smaller so that other people can be bigger.
It's a constant exercise. I didn't accomplish my winnings, my victories so often, but now I can see clearly that I am where I am because I'm good in what I do. So
perfect. What a way to end the podcast. I think that's great. So again, people can see you live in Nyberg, August 26th and 27th at the 4th World Congress of Sports Physical Therapy. We'll have the link on the conference and how to sign up. And we certainly encourage everyone to do that. Like you said, what a great way to meet up with colleagues, to get some really great information and be in a beautiful place while you do it.
yes, exactly. And on August 25, we are going to have a network session delivered by IFSPT. So we are going to have also this moment to get together and exchange.
Perfect. Is there anything else, you're the president, so is there anything else that we missed talking about the conference that you want to let people know is also happening?
We are going to have an interesting conference because it's going to be, I think, the first World Congress of Sports Physical Therapy that we're going to have specific moments to do sports. It's in the program. So we are going to have these more serious moments to talk more about our practices and research, but also light moments to practice sports and be more friendly there.
Yeah. So basically bring your workout clothes is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. And I don't think I mentioned that when I spoke to KT. So I'll be mentioning that moving forward, that bring your sneakers, bring your workout clothes, the traditional, well, here in the US, for whatever reason, people like always wear suits to these things.
Suits. Yes.
So don't worry about the suits, but definitely bring your workout gear.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, Luciana, thank you so much for taking the time out today and coming on to the podcast to talk about all the great stuff you're doing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Karen. Thank you so much.
And everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great couple of days and stay healthy, wealthy, and smart.